Well, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We know this is a difficult topic, it's an important topic, and I really appreciate you coming out for this. It takes courage and emotional strength to even wade into this topic, so the subject of human trafficking is a very heavy one, and we appreciate your coming out for it. The goal of our meeting tonight is to do our part in breaking the silence. We have set this up so that some really great organizations are able to share resources with you, and they have representatives here for you to connect with, to learn more or get involved with them. And we have some outstanding speakers tonight too on the panel, and they are working in various aspects of the fight against human trafficking, and they'll be sharing and educating us from their different perspectives. One thing I think you'll note is that the majority of the organizations that are represented here today are statewide, regional, or local, which means that the fight against human trafficking isn't just overseas or at the border, it's here. All right, why don't we start out with the ladies from the Terrebonne, tell me your organization. Child Advocacy Center, thank you. It's Madison Sampke and Taylor Jackson. They are human trafficking care coordinators.
What about the videos and the governor? Let's start with that.
Okay, we're going to start with a video from the governor.
In Louisiana, we're committed to tackling human trafficking.
Human trafficking is a crime that occurs when someone is forced, tricked, or coerced to work or to provide commercial sex.
Human trafficking is a crime that can happen in any community.
Do you have a game plan to protect yourself? Let's huddle. Secure your social media. Check privacy settings and limit what private information you share online.
Beware of job scams. Be cautious of jobs that seem too good to be true, like advertisements that offer high-paying jobs for simple work.
Learn safe relationship tips. You should feel safe and respected in your relationships.
Know your local resources.
Be prepared with support if someone confides to you about an abusive situation. Let's tackle human trafficking
together.
Awesome. Well, Taylor and Madison, if you wouldn't mind talking to us about what the Children's Advocacy Center offers and care coordination, and talk maybe about risk factors as well, if you have time.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Is this on? You look good? All right. I'm Madison Sampke, and I am Taylor Jackson. Sorry, I'm a little short. And so, like she said, we are from the Child Advocacy Center in Terrebonne Parish. We serve the Thibodeau region, Region 4, and we serve Terrebonne, Assumption, Lafourche Parish, St. James, St. John, and St. Charles. And so, like she said, today we're going to be talking about some indicators of trafficking, how to make a report, and just briefly what we do as a CAC. So I just want to start with a quick definition of what trafficking is, just because we are going to get to that more in depth down the line. So really I want you to focus on the three words: force, fraud, and coercion. So human trafficking is the crime of using force, fraud, or coercion to compel another person into a commercial sex act or labor service against their will. So to start with making a report of potential trafficking, I know that members of the community, whenever you say the word trafficking, it's kind of shocking. You're like, okay, how do I make a report? Am I supposed to report anything I see, or do I have to 100% know that trafficking is happening to report it? So you as a community member, it is not your job to ever prove that trafficking is happening. All you do is, if you have a concern or you spot some of these indicators that I'm about to go over, you can just make the report, and we'll go over what to call. So some common indicators are if a child has run away multiple times, if they have chronic STIs, unusual or suspicious injuries, tattoos, branding, unexplainable gifts, hotel key cards, multiple cell phones, multiple social media accounts, truancy, unexplained travel, or unexplainable changes in attitudes, behaviors, or appearances. And so while none of these indicators will 100% confirm trafficking, these are just signs that we say as a community we should look out for. So if you see something, it's better to say something. So now to make a report, if it's an immediate emergency, as if the child is in immediate danger, we want you to call the authorities, 911, obviously. And if it is a non-emergent situation, meaning you spot some of these indicators and you're like, okay, I think this might be happening, DCFS has a trafficking hotline. And so we have those numbers in the pamphlets in the back, and you're gonna hit option 4. And that's gonna transfer you to our lovely ladies at LACAC over here. And then that's when Taylor and I get the referral as care coordinators at the CAC.
Yes, and so at the CAC, the Child Advocacy Center, the goal of the CAC is to protect and care for victims of child abuse, neglect, human trafficking, and children who do witness violent crimes. And so within the CAC, we house a forensic interviewer, your human trafficking care coordinators, a victim advocate, and a trauma therapist. And so in our position, when you do call the DCFS hotline, which goes to the state, and then through the 2 lovely ladies there at LACAC, they then send a referral to us. And once we get the referral, we look at it, we read it, and then we send it to our law enforcement agency, whether it's local or we have to go state, whichever one. And whenever we get it, we look at it to see if it's confirmed, suspected, or at-risk victims. And then after that, we facilitate meetings with those partners and with those agencies to proper care for the child and provide those services, whether it's with DCFS, common thread, medical providers, trauma therapists, and after that, initial staffing. Then that's pretty much it, and we do stay in communication to provide those services and just make sure that the child is continuing to be safe and in a good predicament.
I love to hope that y'all are not very busy. I would love to hope that. Now, Father Bahi from Metanoia Manor and his colleague, and I met you last year, but I can't recall your name. I'm so sorry.
I'm Pete, he's repeat.
Father Chuck Swanson.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us. But before I begin, Father Chuck and I usually get the microphone. Make no mistake about it, the work we do is not because of what we do. It's just please stand up. These wonderful religious sisters live with our children 24/7, 365. We are a residential facility. On February 8th, we will be in operation 7 years. We're the only accredited juvenile facility in the United States licensed by the National Human Trafficking Shelter Alliance. In the last 7 years, we've served 115 girls. And anyone who has seen The Sound of Freedom, you have a certain idea of what goes on. And The Sound of Freedom is a powerful movie, but it's not our story. Out of 115 children we've served, 5 have come across the border. That's not to say that once this new administration starts uncovering the stash houses and looks at the 340,000 unaccompanied minors they've lost, there'll be many more. But we have a problem long before we had a broken border. Of that 115 children, 5 are international, 95 are Louisiana residents, and the other 10 come from other U.S. states as far away as California, Michigan, Florida, Illinois, North Carolina, Texas. We have a real problem. And one of the things that is so very, very nauseating is that according to the United Nations, there are 49.8 million people trafficked worldwide. We have more people being trafficked today than the 400 years of the legal African slave trade. The United States has the dubious distinction of consuming 10% of the world's slaves, which means on any given day, 5 million people are bought and sold in this country. 85% of them are sold into sex trafficking. 60% of that 85% are under the age of 18. And of those under the age of 18, 31% are now young boys, mostly trapped in gaming apps on the internet. Now, with that in mind, we have a total for the 5 million people bought and sold in this country. As of 2 weeks ago, we have a total of 930 beds in this country for victims of human trafficking. All the while, we have over 5,000 animal rescue shelters, each one holding 100 to 1,000 animals. And so, you do the math on that. And this $19 a month, because no puppy deserves to live like that. I've got nothing against your pets, but I've got a lot more for children. And we need to rescue our children.
Over 60% of the traffic are juveniles. But of the 950 beds that Father talked about, here in the United States, there are 250 for juveniles, for the 60%.
Back away the money. You pop it.
I'm popping.
Pop
Well, maybe. I can't stop popping.
Okay, one of the things that we don't realize is the national average for juveniles being sold into sexual slavery. The national average is 45% are sold by their primary caregivers, their own families, their own mothers, their own fathers. There are people who actually retire because you can make between $120,000 and $200,000 a year on an 11-year-old girl. If I sell you a drug, you own the drug. If I sell you a child, I can sell that child 10, 12, 15 times a day. And it's happening. And it's happening right here. Now, I want to talk for a moment about Metanoia. We decided when we built it that our children had been used enough. So we built a brand new facility, 16 bedrooms, 16 bathrooms. Each child has their own private bathroom because of the violations that have taken place prior to their coming to us. They have their own little bed, they have their nightstand, their bathroom, their closet, their chest of drawer, their desk. Many of our kids, when they come to us, will not sleep in the bed. They're used to being awakened in the middle of the night to go make money. So they sleep in the closet so nobody can find them. And then after a certain amount of time, when our children move out of the bed, we know they trust us, that we're gonna keep them safe. It's a big, big step. But we will have children 15 years old who've never been to a primary care physician. They've only been seen in emergency rooms. Never been to an OBGYN based on the extreme amount of abuse they've been through. Never seen a dentist. And most of our children, 15, 16, 17-year-old, test out at a grade 4 learning level. And the only reason they test out is a grade 4. That's as low as the testing goes.
The two trick questions that we get when we talk to groups like this is this. Well, it doesn't happen here, does it? Not in a small little town. You have the internet here?
It happens.
It happens. Second question is, it's not our girls, is it? Guess what?
Yeah. I mean, I'm offended by that question. No child, I don't care where you come from, deserves to be treated like these children have been treated. One of the beautiful things that happens with having these wonderful sisters live with our girls is for many of these kids, it's the first time they've had an adult consistent figure in their life that's not going to hurt them. It's the first time that when they're in the middle of the night, if they're crying and sister's walking down the hall, they're going to go in and sit on the side of the bed and rub their back until they fall asleep, because nighttime is really tough for our children. That's where many of the activities took place. Now, we're not just social work on steroids, okay? The sisters, they don't know why they dress so funny. They don't know why they pray all the time. But they know they're here because they love us. They're not here for the money. It makes a huge, huge difference in the psyche of these children to feel safe, and they can go and they can talk to someone. Many of our children who've long gone and left, Mother's Day, they all get a call from the sisters. They get in trouble, they get a call to the sisters. These have become the rudders in their completely dysfunctional childhood and life. And the secretary of success, if there are no sisters, I'm closing Metanoia tomorrow, because these children need consistency, they need love, they need nurturing, they need guidance, and they will accept it from the sisters.
You know, consistency is a big thing. You know the average time that somebody works in a shelter here in the United States? Less than 6 months. So think about 3 shifts for an 11-year-old, changing every 6 months about who's going to be there for their breakfast, lunch, dinner, who's going to help them through their schoolwork, who's going to teach them how to wash their clothes, how to clean their rooms.
Personal hygiene, dental hygiene.
All that. You know, our statistics are a lot higher than the 46%.
Yeah, our children are closer to 65 or 70% of our children that can get into trafficking. So when we first started with DCFS, they said, now remember, our goal is family reunification. I said, like hell.
Yeah, right.
You know, I'm not sending them back to the people who are responsible for them being here. So our children age out, and many of them have no place to go. We're in the process, and we work with Eden House and New Orleans. It's a wonderful program. We're in the process of getting a transition house within our own community. The other thing is that people don't realize the trauma is so severe. Every morning when we're down, we're at the convent at 7:30 in the morning saying Mass for the nuns. That's very essential to what they do. And we can't wear any cologne. We got to be fragrance free. We walk in there with a certain cologne, and this child will fall apart if that smell reminds them of a very, very traumatic incident in their life. We had one little girl who had nothing but old white-headed men. She stayed away from us. She would be in the other room, you know, and we never approached her. We would tell her hello from across the room, but, you know, that's a reality. And the other thing that we need to understand is that, you know, and we've got these 340,000 unaccompanied minors. We're going to rescue them. Good. What are you going to do with them?
250 beds for minors.
Where are you going to put them?
You can't mix them either. It doesn't work to put
No.
popping together.
But you know, I mean, the thing is, everyone says, oh, thank you for what you do. We'll pray for you. That's good. And God knows we need prayers, because we're dealing with evil here, okay? We really are. But we need people to mobilize. We need places for these children. And you can't just put them anywhere. You put them in a group home, they get a good night's sleep, a meal, they're gone. A lot of these children form trauma bonds. They come from very screwed up family situations. This guy, who's been selling them, he lets them sleep in a hotel room. He brings them to a restaurant where you don't order out of the clown's mouth, and he bought her a $200 purse. No one's ever done that for them before. So they think this is a person who loves them. And they'll go back time and time again, because it's better in many cases than anything they've ever had before.
And at such a young age, a lot of them think it's normal. A lot of them think it's normal. We had a lady that was a survivor that was trafficked by her own father from the age of 3. And then when she got into junior high, she realized that wasn't normal. And so she told somebody. He was arrested. He was charged with 29 charges, went to trial, was convicted on 27 of them. And guess what? He got less than 6 months in jail.
All right.
High money, low.
Globally, we were just at the European Parliament a month ago. On a global average, 1 in 7,000 traffickers who are arrested are prosecuted. 1 in 7,000.
Why is that number
so low?
Why
is that number so low?
You know, I'd like to know that too.
Yeah.
I'd also like to know who was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane and B. Diddy's parties and the Playboy Mansion. I don't know where the protection's come.
And the container, the shipping container.
And the shipping containers. But, you know, we've had children with us 2 years, gone to court 4 times, and, you know, when they go to court to face their trafficker, they don't eat for 2 days, everything they eat turns to diarrhea, you know, they're up in a ball, they go to court, sits on a bench in the hall, the 2 lawyers go to the judge, someone files a motion, and she goes home. We had it happen, and finally she said, excuse me for being rude, shit on it. I'm living locked up, and no one cares about my trafficker. And I know we have our DA here, and I know we have a legislator. We need real, serious changes when it comes to human trafficking. The fact that someone can buy and sell a child, and they can go to, you know, be arrested and have years before they go to court. I'm going to tell you one story in Baton Rouge.
Then you gotta stop.
I will. Well, no, we got till 7:10. Shut up. Anyway. No. And this happened in September. They arrested a 28-year-old man. In 2019, this young man was arrested for carnal knowledge of a juvenile. Then, in 2021, he was arrested for trafficking 4 teenage girls out of a motel. In September of 2024, he was arrested again for trafficking 4 teenage girls out of a motel on the airline highway in Baton Rouge. Why in the hell was this guy not behind bars? You know, I'm not kidding. We need an overhaul of the system. No one should be able to go more than a year without being in court and a resolution of the case if you've been buying and selling a child. But we're not there, and we need to be there. And so, you know, when we deal with our kids, we see everything that they are not getting, that we can't provide. And so there are a lot of issues, and yeah, I'm glad we have elected officials and local officials. We need to put some teeth. You know, if 1 in 7,000 who are arrested are prosecuted, hell, why not? For $200,000 a year, you sell a couple kids, you're on Easy Street, and you get to sleep late.
Tell them how much they make.
Well, this is a Baton Rouge market, 120 to 200. Areas like LA, Boston, Miami, that goes up between 400 and $1 million per child, per year.
What's the total? Billion. How many billion?
Oh, now, according to the International Monetary Fund, in October of 2024, human trafficking, the sale of the human person, is a $236 billion a year industry.
What can you buy with that?
What you can buy with that is you can buy the entire NFL. You can buy the entire FIFA World Cup. You can take every 18-year-old in this country and give them a 4-year full ride to Stanford University, and you're still nowhere as close to $236 billion. A year.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Marcia?
No, let's give them a chance over there.
I told you, Bonnie.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
The ladies donated a few minutes of their time, so.
These two
Yeah, they did.
Thank you, ladies.
That's how come you have 15 minutes.
All right, next is State Representative Beryl Amade, and she's going to talk about the definition of human trafficking versus some other crimes.
Nice to get applause before you speak. You guys are hard to follow, especially when you've just talked about the laws that are not really being enforced. And I'm supposed to talk about definitions and laws here. Okay. All right.
It's better now. A little better.
Yeah, thank you, because that's where I'm going. Okay, human trafficking includes work trafficking and sex trafficking. Louisiana, unfortunately, is a leader among states in human trafficking, and depending on which source you look at, we're even number 1 on many of them. Why? Well, there are a lot of reasons, but part of it is simply our geography. When you think about it, our transportation infrastructure makes us a prime spot. We have the Port of New Orleans, which is one of the biggest ports in the country, very active. We have I-10, which passes through Louisiana, including stops at 3 of our 4 major cities. It runs right through Lafayette, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. The only one left is Shreveport. And you can get there with the I-49 corridor. We also have the right atmosphere because Louisiana is a state that has many big crowd activities year-round. I mean, Mardi Gras, it's not even just a one-day thing, it's a whole season. Then we have the Superdome with all the activities that go on there, sports and concerts and everything. We have the year-round party atmosphere because, you know, in Louisiana, I mean, it's not just Mardi Gras. You don't even need an excuse to have a party. I mean, in Louisiana, we even have traditions where we have parades for funerals. And a lot of those activities involve drinking and drugs. And whenever people are not completely sober, they're more likely to do things that we, a generation ago, wouldn't talk about in public, like we're trying to do here tonight. So there are a lot of reasons. So whether it's out of necessity or desperation, Louisiana also ranks very high on a good list. And that being that we have some of the best laws against human trafficking of all the states in the United States. Now, in recent years, we've passed a number of good laws. We've strengthened the laws that we already had. And of course, we still have some work to do. And I'm hoping that tonight we can also have someone knowledgeable come up and talk about enforcement and how we can increase enforcement. So I want to define a few terms here. So sex trafficking and prostitution are not the same thing. I'll say it again. Sex trafficking and prostitution are not the same thing. And the main reason, the easiest way you can tell the difference, is a simple word: consent. Someone who is a victim of sex trafficking is a person who cannot consent. Whereas prostitution, the parties are agreeing to the activity that they're doing. Minors cannot consent. They think they can. Sometimes they act like they can. But in the eyes of the law, a minor is not able to consent. Those who are being forced or coerced, no matter what their age, If they're being compelled, it's not that they're giving their consent. They're victims. We've passed laws to help protect children on the internet, and honestly, some of those bills that I've seen while I've been in the legislature have been challenging. I mean, you want to vote for them because we're trying, but really, how do you enforce some of those internet laws? Because, you know, the website says, are you over 18? You click a button. You don't have the identity police come and check your house to be sure. Anybody can click a button. But the strength in the laws that we've passed to protect children on the internet have to do with when someone is caught using the internet to solicit children. That's where the strength comes in. In 2024, we also passed Act 436, which was named the Women's Safety and Protection Act. So how is that related to what we're talking about this evening? Well, it brought a little bit of common sense and sanity back into law. Because at the domestic violence shelters and the few, unfortunately, very few places that we do have where victims of human trafficking and sex trafficking can go, the bill requires that any multi-occupancy, bathrooms, dressing rooms, dormitories, etc., must be designated for use only by members of the same sex or by families. So that not only includes the facilities that I was just mentioning, but it also includes schools, universities, hospitals. So that's part of what that bill did. Now, this week, I happened to come across this brochure that's put out by the Terrebonne Child Advocacy Center. And when I was studying to be able to speak to you tonight about the laws in Louisiana, the two most pertinent sections of law are Revised Statute 14, sections 46.2 and 46.3. That's just for all you law nerds out there, okay? Those, when they're printed, are 3 pages long of legalese. But I am so blessed to instead be able to utilize the very first definition or section in this brochure because it makes it so simple. So I want to leave you with this. Human trafficking is the crime of using force, fraud, or coercion to compel another person into commercial sex acts or labor services against their will. In Louisiana, it is not required to demonstrate the use of force, fraud, or coercion when the victim is a minor or a youth under the age of 21. This means that any person in Louisiana under the age of 21 who is engaging in commercial sex acts is a victim of crime and not a criminal. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Amadei. And now, Ms. Monica Taylor from the director, she is the director, rather, of the Governor's Office of Human Trafficking Prevention. How much time do I have?
3 minutes.
You're good.
You get 4.
So, thank you so much. So I feel like we're kind of going from the very nuance of it to a little bit more of big picture. So I am the director of the Governor's Office of Human Trafficking Prevention. So the work that I do, unlike both of the fathers and the sisters and the ladies from the Child Advocacy Center, I do not provide direct services to victims of trafficking. It is my job to work with the legislature, to work with law enforcement, work with the District Attorneys Association, district attorneys, to make sure that they have all of the information and tools that they need to be able to prosecute these cases. And so some of the things that we've been doing and we have been hearing is that about the penalties that Father mentioned. And so these are some things that we are looking at changing in the upcoming legislative session. Because we have heard what people are saying. We hear this from district attorneys. District attorneys want a bigger stick to be able to go after these folks with. Another thing that a lot of people don't necessarily understand, I like to use the example of a triangle. When you are talking about a juvenile, you don't have to have that triangle to have human trafficking. And what I mean by that is when you think of human trafficking, you think, especially on the side of sex, you think about a buyer, a seller, and a victim, right? You think of that triangle. If it is a juvenile, they do not own their consent to sell trafficking. The law is extremely clear. On juveniles, it is the selling or the purchasing of sex from a juvenile. So you can actually charge, you could charge someone for having sex with a juvenile if they have exchanged goods or services. And so that can be anything. There's a case that recently has been charged that added the charge of human trafficking. A 25-year-old was having sex with his 13-year-old stepsister, and every time he would, she kept a very detailed journal with times and dates, and they were able to go into his Amazon account and see every time he bought coins for the game that she liked to play on her tablet. And you could line up the dates or the time that he had sex with her and the times when he bought those coins for her. So what we do hear from a lot of district attorneys, there's a lot of reasons why they may plead down a case for the safety or the health, the well-being of a juvenile, of someone who is being trafficked. So maybe sometimes they'll do a plea deal, which is completely acceptable, and we support that. Sometimes they will charge them with other crimes, like carnal knowledge of a juvenile, because you will get a lot more time for that, and a lot of people don't understand human trafficking, and so the time you would have to take to educate a jury can be very cumbersome, and you risk messing up your case for very little penalty. So that is some things that we are working on. So the district attorneys around the state are doing an excellent job on learning about this stuff, figuring out, letting us know what are some things that we can do to help them. And I'll say the same thing about the sheriffs and the chiefs as well. I've worked with the sheriff, in Lafourche closely. I know Monica well, and I know the folks from Terrebonne really well too. I actually had a conversation with the chief of police. He's not here tonight because it's his anniversary. So he did tell me to tell y'all that his wife would have been really mad at him if he wouldn't have gone out to dinner tonight. He wishes he could be here. But you know, they are all learning about this. Think about it this way. How many years have you been hearing about human trafficking? How long have you been hearing about domestic violence and sexual assault, right? So we have not been talking about human trafficking for as long as we've been talking about domestic violence and sexual assault. It wasn't until the 1980s, late 1980s, that it was illegal for a man to rape his wife. 1980s, how many of you were born then? I was alive then, and it was legal for a man to rape his wife. So we are talking about this. Our laws have to catch up. Technology moves so fast. There's so many things that it used to be. We used to always want to put on our posters and our paraphernalia, we wanted to put little pull tabs so people could pull a tab and hide it so when they could get to a phone, that they would. We used to have, I live in Baton Rouge, we used to have Airline Highway in Baton Rouge was the track, the stroll. Okay, if you were in the life, that's where you were. None of that exists anymore. Every single trafficker, every single victim, what do they have every single day in their hands? Some of these girls would rather you cut off their hands than take their phone from them. And I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. And this is how their trafficker tracks them and finds them. So we on a state level are doing a whole lot of different things. The Governor Landry is committed to this issue. He and I have worked on this issue for the 8 years he was in the Attorney General's office. I've done a lot of training of law enforcement and of prosecutors, and the cops that are in here can tell you this is the longest they've ever heard me speak without cursing. Because I usually am a little spicy when I give my presentations to law enforcement. But that commercial that you saw at the beginning, Cox Communications paid for the filming of that. My staff wrote that commercial, I directed it. We joined with the Louisiana Women's Caucus, Legislature Women's Caucus, a lot of them. Beryl didn't make it that day that we filmed at the end, but a lot of them are in it at the end. The Senate President is in that, Mrs. Benson, and if you didn't, y'all recognize the man at the end? Who's that? Who knows who that is? Demario Davis from the New Orleans Saints. He is the leading tackler with the New Orleans Saints, and he is him and his wife, that was his wife, that was with him, Tamala. They're lovely people. They have been giving of themselves and giving money to this issue, helping with making New Orleans a better place. They have very generous hearts. They are people of God for sure. You may remember a couple of years ago, he got fined by the NFL for wearing a headband that said "Man of God," and he fought that and got that reversed. So they are amazing, amazing people. Speaking of Super Bowl and that commercial is going to be playing on Cox stations. You can go to our YouTube channel if you want, and you can share that commercial on your Facebook page, on your social media sites. You can share that. So it is out there. You can go and you can share it. You can share it from now until Super Bowl, now through Mardi Gras. A couple other things I want to tell you guys real quick. I'm probably going over time after I made fun of Father about doing that. I want to draw your attention to this poster, and I have some of the flyers in the back with the same artwork. We had a conversation with the sisters and with the girls out at Metanoia. We hired a graphic designer. She went to Metanoia, spent the day with the girls. The sisters fed them very, very well. She still talks about it, but we hired a graphic designer. All of this artwork that is on here, all these individual pieces of artwork were done by the survivors at Metanoia House. We said, what do you want to see on a poster? What do you want to see? What is the message you want for victims and for survivors? They don't want that handcuffed, scared, hiding in the corner, tape over the mouth, because that's not the life that they lived. They want to know that there's hope, and they want to know that they are not alone. So our tagline is, "You are not alone." So this artwork was done by the girls. We love it. And by the way, I do want to point out, we paid the graphic designer, but we paid the girls too. We paid them so that they know that their artwork has value, so their voice has value. Not all of their value is in their body. So we paid them for their work so that they knew this. And so on there is a QR code, and you can also, on my table back there, I have some of the flyers you can pick up, and we have these. We live in an anxious world. This is called a calm strip. It's rough. You rub your hand over it. It makes you feel better. Makes you, calms you down a little bit. Our QR code is on this as well. We have put things on, and we have worked with survivors on putting this together. On our landing page for that QR code, if you have food or housing insecurity, which can make you vulnerable to someone trying to traffic you, we have information on there. If you're a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault, if you have mental health issues, if you need medical assistance, if you need assistance for human trafficking, any of those things, we have all of the resources there on that page for people. So please pick up the posters, pick up the cards, and I think I covered everything. I do super quick want to introduce, if it's okay, I want to introduce Crystal and Jasmine, if they want to stand up. They're with the Louisiana Alliance of Child Advocacy Centers. So these ladies oversee 14 child advocacy centers throughout the state of Louisiana, just like the one that Madison and Taylor work at. We have 17 care coordinators, just like Madison and Taylor. who work throughout the state. They work with our office through a fantastic piece of legislation that was passed through our Louisiana legislature that is called Act 662. And we provide services with DCFS. It's that hotline that the ladies talked about, but also we have long-term extended care that we provide to juvenile victims of sexual assault, and the state pays for it. So with the care coordinators and our advocacy centers, which is Common Thread and Unbound Now, are the two advocacy centers that we work with, they provide long-term services. So when law enforcement does sting operations, we have advocates who are there, and the advocates talk to the victims that show up, and they tell them, the advocates have water for them, clothes for them, because they show up in booty shorts and sports bras, and it's cold outside. They have clothes and shoes for them, and they offer them a place to stay. They offer them a way to get back home. They offer them support and love, just like the sisters do every day, unconditional love. So I think that's it. I'll stop now. Thank you, Monica.
All right, before we move into the Q&A, we will be passing a hat around to give you an opportunity to donate. All of the funds that we collect this evening will be donated to the organizations that are here in support of victims. And just a reminder that if you have any questions, we have note cards. Please put them on the cards and just wave, and somebody will come and pick it up from you. And just a note that the organizations that are here have materials at the back of the room. So before you leave, you'll want to check those out. All right, Monica, I think don't get too relaxed.
Let me make one announcement if you don't mind. PBS did a wonderful documentary about our work. Matter of fact, it won an Emmy Award, and they had a second premiere today. It's called Turning the Tide, the story of hell, healing, and hope. It's available on YouTube. And right throughout the door to the left, we have information about metanoia and how to support us. And that information is about the video on YouTube is there. So we hope you take the opportunity to watch it. It really tells the story of who we are. See, I'm on top.
Thank you. I'm Joe Waits Jr. I'm the district attorney. I just wanted to first of all thank we the people, Bayou community for putting on this function. I think it's very needed. I think it's very important, and I thank you all. The second person and group I'd like to thank is Father Bahi. I got involved with Father Bahi many years ago through my sister, my mother. And my mother, I want to share something with you. My mother made 91 last night to celebrate her birthday. Stand up.
How do you like that?
I am one of 7 children, and she might not want to answer this question, but Mom, tell me who's your favorite. Mary, who's your favorite? I am. I'm just teasing. She has 7 wonderful kids. I just happen to be one of them. About 7 or 8 years ago, I forget when it was, I got a call from my sister and my mother about getting involved with Father Bahi. I knew of him because of my brother John and Mary, my mother, all close to him. And Mary called me and asked me, I said, yeah, I'm going to try to make it. And about 15 minutes later, I got a second phone call. My mother said, son, you will be there. And Father Bahi, I think I was there, like Charles with you, was I not? Yeah. So anyway, we started this many years ago, and it's an honor and a privilege to be involved, because I got to tell you, years ago, you say human trafficking, I was like, I don't think we have a problem here. Now I know we have a problem. I know there are issues here, and we are trying to address it. I'm very fortunate because these 2 ladies are a division of the Terrebonne Parish District Attorney's Office with the Children's Advocacy Center. I started the Advocacy Center 25 years ago. 25 years ago. And strictly a prosecutorial tool to help children through the court system. Little kids that were victims of crimes. It's very traumatic for them. And since that time, we have full-time counselors. We have ladies like this. We're in the school system. We are doing everything in our power to be proactive and specifically address the human trafficking problems that exist. These two ladies are trained to help identify these problems, bring them to my attention, and if we can make a case in Terrebonne Parish, we do it. And these two ladies are my barometer for help getting those cases through the system. So I thank you, Madison, and thank you, Taylor, for what you all do, and I appreciate and love you all for helping our children. I just want you all to know I recognize the problem. I'm on board with the problem. I'm on board with Father Baye to continue Metanoia and his program. I think when we went to Lake Charles many years ago, we were just starting that program. He was trying to raise the funds to get it. I'm very happy that it's where it is now and the number of kids that he's serving. It's wonderful. I'm here committed to this. I work hand in hand with our sheriff, our chief of police, and if we can, I think we have one of the best systems as far as law enforcement because our relationships with law enforcement, we all work together and we make stuff happen here. I'm very proud to be your district attorney and I'm very proud to address these issues. If y'all have any questions, I'm here, I'm sitting right there, I'll be happy to answer them, okay? Thank you.
Okay, to start the Q&A, I think maybe we'll start with you, Monica, and then if anybody else wants to join in on this question. Is there anything being done proactively to get vulnerable people into protection before big events like the Super Bowl?
Yes. The NFL, if you don't know, every Super Bowl, the NFL gives a grant of $100,000 to local organizations on the ground to provide services around human trafficking. That's just one of the things that they do through their social responsibility. So the Greater New Orleans the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation has a social responsibility division. They contacted us early on and said, where do you guys think that this money should go? It has to go to a nonprofit, or several nonprofits, who do y'all think it should go to? And so we worked with Covenant House in New Orleans, which is the main organization that acts as the clearinghouse for the Greater New Orleans Human Trafficking Human Trafficking Task Force. It's a lot of names. And it's a partnership with Covenant House and the District Attorney's Office. If you don't know what Covenant House is, it is a youth homeless shelter. So when we wrote the grant for Covenant House to get the $100,000 from the NFL, what we said is that 10% is going to go to printing information to get the information out there. So these flyers, these posters, all of that stuff it's being printed through that grant, and 90% of that money is being spent on direct services and harm reduction. So if we can get food, housing, especially for minors, for juveniles, before they are trafficked, then that's what we want to do. And partnering with Covenant House, because that's what they do, is they provide those services to juveniles, we just felt like it was a no-brainer. So that's one of the biggest things that we're doing leading up to the Super Bowl.
Great, thank you. And again, if anyone has anything to add, just raise your hand. Where do most of the government funds go throughout the state for trafficking? I don't know if that's with respect to location or if it's local agencies maybe?
So right now, what the majority of the work that is being done on human trafficking that gets state general funds or dedicated funds is done through my office or through DCFS, Department of Family and Children's Services. So we have Act 662, which you can look up, and Act 662 provides funding for the Louisiana Alliance of Child Advocacy Centers and for the 17 care coordinators throughout the state. It also provides funds for those services. So we put out an RFP every 3 years. An RFP is a request for proposals. Sorry, the government person and me starting to come out using all these acronyms. A request for proposals, and groups can come in and put forth a proposal. So we have 2 groups right now. One services Baton Rouge and New Orleans, which is Unbound Now. The other one services the rest of the state, which is Common Thread, and they provide the direct services. So, for instance, the other night there was a young girl, 16 years old, pregnant. She's a runaway from DCFS's custody. Law enforcement spotted her. They brought her in. They called the care coordinator in the DCFS hotline. The coordinator from Common Thread went to the police station and sat with her, and then when she started cramping while they were waiting for DCFS to come, she started cramping because she was pregnant. They transported her, the police department transported her to the hospital. The advocate went with her to the hospital, sat with her, stayed with her the whole time. And let me tell y'all something. This advocate has been with this child through multiple times that this child has run away, multiple times that she has, I think one time the story goes, she threw a Coke can at one of the advocates, and the advocate just said, okay, I'm not leaving. You can throw a Coke can at me if you want, but I'm not leaving. And they're not used to that. They're used to when they throw a Coke can, then the person's like, fine, you don't want my help, I'm leaving. And these advocates stay with them, and that is all state general dollars. So what we do is we have this funding, but we push it down to the locals. We push it down to people like Madison and Taylor, who have the relationships with the DA, with the sheriff, with the police department, with their officers, and they have each other's cell phone numbers, and they call each other, and they talk all the time and everything. I don't keep that money. That money's all pushed down so that we can provide more. I will say one more thing, and then I'll stop talking on this. One of the things that I have been talking about a whole lot, and I said this yesterday in a committee hearing on Task Force on Child Abuse, is that the DA, what he did 20-some years ago by forming the CAC was brilliant. I'm not just saying that because your mom was here, but it was brilliant. Because what we have learned, we all know we have a crime problem, right? And Governor Landry has done things to try and address that. But what happens is these NGOs, whether it's the ladies with domestic violence or sexual assault or child advocacy centers, these NGOs receive very little state funding, very little dedicated funding. They're always the first ones to get cut, state and federal funding. They're clobbering things together. They keep victims engaged with the criminal justice system. And without these NGOs and without us funding these NGOs, our criminal justice system is not going to keep the victims engaged to put the perpetrators in jail. And so the DA having this idea to start this child advocacy center 20-some years ago was really a brilliant idea. So I applaud him for that.
Okay, for the parents of minors here, what can we do to protect our children regarding iPhones and social media?
I'll start just a little bit. I know other people are going to have something to say too. I know Father Chuck has stuff to say. When I was in the Attorney General's office, we had a book called Be Smart with Your Smartphones. And for those folks who are interested, I'll have to give the ladies with We the People the name of of a gentleman who works at the Attorney General's office. His name is David Ferris. He runs the Internet Crimes Against Children unit, and he is really amazing. He has been called to this work as law enforcement, and he really has a heart for it. You have to know what your kids are doing. You have to have complete access to their phones. You have to educate yourself and know about Friendster accounts and fake accounts and find all of those, and you have to stay up to date on all the different apps that are in there. You have to watch everything that they do, whether it's on gaming devices. I think Father Chuck mentioned that earlier. The online multiplayer video, whatever, shoot, kill 'em games or whatever, that they're talking to people that they don't know on the internet. Those are all things that you have to talk to your kids about this. So many people are afraid to talk to their kids about this issue. You have to talk to them and let them know. And it's not, who in here is a Gen Xer? You know what a Gen Xer is? Born? Yeah, so I know you don't want to raise your hands because you're apathetic. But, you know, you remember it's 10 o'clock where your kids? So it's not out there. It's in the bedroom. It's in their room. Your kids should not have their cell phones or their tablets in their bedrooms at night. At all. They should be put someplace else where the parents have them charging overnight. They should not be there. The computer should be in a place where everyone can walk by and see it at any point in time.
You can turn the internet off now.
Yes, you can turn the internet off. Yes, you can absolutely turn the internet off at night.
You know, take the phone out of the children's room.
Yep.
Take it out of the room. Would you let a 22-year-old into your house, into your daughter's 14-year-old bedroom? You wouldn't do that, would you? Don't let them take the phone. It's the same thing.
One of the newer crimes is what they call sextortion.
Yes.
And what's happening is, it happened in Brandon, Mississippi, 16-year-old boy, great kid, played ball, hunted with his dad at the junior ROTC, takes his phone to bed and gets a ping about 11 o'clock at night. Some gal saying, you know, how great you look, and you know, this, that, and the other. And, well, long and short of it is, she's flirting with him, and he gets him to send the picture. I don't need to explain what picture he sent. And after he sent the picture about 2:30 in the morning, she starts demanding $2,000 by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Or else I'm going to show everybody at school. I'm going to show your parents. I'm going to show everything. About 4 o'clock in the morning, he texted and said, I can't have $2,000. I just soon kill myself. The girl responded, you just soon. Your life is over. At 4:15, the parents heard the gunshot. When cybercrimes investigated it, the communicator was from Moldova. So, you know, if you think it's just a smart practice to prevent your children, I don't care if they hate you. I hope they live a very long life hating you, okay? And if you and your child, if your child is your best friend, one of you is retarded. All right? So I don't really care. So make sure that their electronics are not left up to them out of your presence.
Exactly what Father Bahi is saying happened today. I had a phone call with a picture with an extortion like that, saying that it's going all over the internet. I got a list of all your friends. It happened today. Exactly what he's saying.
Here in this great metropolitan area. Right. It happens anywhere.
And it's not just the bedroom in your house. Check your kids' phone and computers. Do it. Yes. Check it.
Know all their passwords.
Yep.
Exactly.
Know all their passwords. If they've got a hidden password, and like kids are so much smarter than we'll ever be able to, okay? But know all their passwords, and if they won't give you their passwords,
then when you're old enough to buy your own $1,400 phone and pay your bill, you take it back. I'm paying for it, I want to know everything that's on it.
Yeah, it's your phone, not theirs. That's enough.
All right, so I'm Lieutenant Pellegrin, I'm with the Sheriff's Office. I'm the lieutenant over the Special Victims Unit, which we cover all human trafficking, sex crimes. But we're also assigned to ICAC, which is the Internet Crimes Against Children through the AG's office. So to answer the question, if you go to the website for NICMIC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they have videos starting from kindergarten, going all the way to high school, on phone safety and what to do to help prevent your child from going online. As the father said, I highly recommend, whether it's once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, take their phone. If you bought the phone, it's your phone, it's not theirs. Right? Try and educate yourself on the different apps that are out there because they change all the time. We have to educate ourselves. There's also on the phones, it's like little safes, if you want to call it that, where they can look stuff up and they'll put it in this little app that looks like a safe, but it's masked by something else. So it might show Snapchat, but it's not Snapchat. It's like a little safe that's in there, and they put all their secret stuff. So just educate yourself on the different apps. If y'all have any questions on phone safety, or y'all have problems with y'all's children on the phone, on the gaming devices, because all that is an open platform, what they call open platform, where they can converse with different people while they're playing the game. Call me, and we'll help y'all out.
That's where a lot of gaming, a lot of traffickers are on gaming things.
With young boys.
Well, it's still, so, just to give you an example, we had a 11-year-old girl, there was an app, never heard of it, it's called Kiss Kiss. And she was old enough to get on this app, but it was like spin the bottle. So she could spin the bottle and play with all these different people that she didn't know, and it was an open platform. So she started communicating with these men, and then they would tell her to go to meet, like a text now app or Snapchat or whatever app they wanted to communicate with her to, or communicate with her at. And then they start communicating and sending each other pictures and stuff, but she's 11. But if you just look at the app, I mean, the parents didn't know, they weren't familiar with the app. We weren't familiar with the app, but the apps change all the time. So, the best you can, educate yourself. But get with us.
May you repeat the name of the site that you
Yeah, it's the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or NICMIC. It's the same people that put out the missing children posters and stuff like that. The reason why they do that, when they monitor all the child porn through the internet, right? So if somebody's uploading child porn, let's say iCloud might flag child porn, they send that to NICMIC. NICMIC in turn does their investigation, attaches a number to the photo, then they send it through ICAC. And then ICAC will distribute, okay, well, it looks like the IP address is coming out of Terrebonne, then they send it to us, and then we start our investigation on the child porn. But they also have other things they do, right? And one of it is to educate parents on phone safety.
Thank you. So there's some other things as well. So as a mother of a 13-year-old daughter, I've educated her, what does it look like when somebody's trying to groom you? So I think that you have to go even a step further than just internet safety, but rather, what does this look like if somebody's trying to do this with you? Now, of course, I have bark on my phone because as much as we can try to educate ourselves on every single app, it's difficult. Because like he said, it's constantly evolving. And so when we can put things like, I hope you support bark, because I'm saying I love bark, yeah. And so it'll flag any different thing. It'll tell me if my kid has added any more apps into their phone. Even as much as I have a 17-year-old son who watched a video on YouTube, but because it flagged violence right away in real time, it's given it.
It also kind of changes with the algorithms and things like that. So if somebody's writing sex like S3X, it can still pick those things up. Any mention of suicide on their phone. So any app that they're trying to get will automatically notify you in real time. Because it is important that we're taking the phones away at night and things like that. But what about they have their phones on them 24/7. And then that's constantly us, and as soon as we find out what an app is, there's a new app the next day. So if we can put protectors like that on their phones, so it's automatically notifying me. One of them is Bark, but there's many others.
You spell that?
Yeah, there's multiple ones. B-A-R-K, like bark, like a dog bark. That's one of them, but there's many different protectors that we can put on their phones that is monitoring it in real time.
So where do you find the protect? Where do you find a list of those apps?
You can Google.
Google.
Yeah.
One thing I forgot to mention, I am working with the school board where I'm going in and talking to the kids about phone safety. So where she mentioned about the grooming, depending on the age, depends on what I'm educating them on. But I'm going in starting from 3rd grade all the way to high school. It's something new we're doing. I think I've only done a handful of schools, but everybody's on board with it. I've got it set up for Home and Christian at some point. We have to set a date. But I know the reason why I started doing that is because a lot of parents aren't aware. And our caseload is crazy. So I found one way to do it is to get to the schools and educate the kids. And then we also have stuff set up in the schools where we would have a teacher-parent night, because teachers aren't used to all this either. Everybody's learning about this internet stuff. So if y'all get a flyer or something from the school saying some guy's going to talk about phone safety, that's me.
All right, there's a group in Sarasota, and I'm drawing a blank. The founder's Elizabeth Good. They've done a K through 12 scope and sequence, Christian based, and it's for each grade level to educate the children about the dangers of human trafficking. If you get in touch with me, I'll give you Elizabeth Goods, but it's that type of thing, K through 12, age appropriate warnings about human trafficking. Hopefully we get it in the school system.
And to piggyback on that, I'm going to call out Beth, who's sitting right here in the front. She does a lot of work with Father Bahi and the sisters in Metanoia House. But Beth is also very active in Baton Rouge in the Rotary Club and Rotary International. And she contacted us a year ago and asked us to start helping do some training in schools on human trafficking. And so actually today, my deputy director was with the care coordinator for Baton Rouge, and they have trained all of the guidance counselors and social workers in East Baton Rouge Parish on what human trafficking is. And this is something we're hoping to roll out statewide to do with all of our care coordinators around the state. I do want to say too, grooming is a big thing. And one of the things that's so hard for us in Southwest Louisiana, right, is you better go hug your grandma. We just got to the house. Go hug your uncle. Go ahead, just go give him a hug. It don't matter. I know you don't want to. You never see him. You don't know who he is. But that's rude. Stop being rude. You need to be polite. You need to be well behaved. No, children need to know that their body, that they have autonomy over their bodies. And that's so hard for us in Southwest Louisiana because it's not our culture, right? I have great nieces and nephews. I know I don't look old enough for that, but I have great nieces and nephews, and some of them live out of state. And so when they see me, it takes a while for them to warm up to me. And so I always, can Aunt Monica have a hug? Can Aunt Monica have a kiss on the cheek? That kind of thing. I always ask, and if they say no, okay, that's fine. How about a high five? No? Okay, well, I'll talk, we can sit here and chat, that's fine. But they need to know that they can say no to an adult and it's okay.
Yes, yes. That's good, thank you. Oh, go ahead, please say something
as well. Just going back to what they were saying with the trainees, we too offer 101 and 102 for labor trafficking as well. And we also offer the kindergarten through 12th grade training. It's called the Protect Program through 3 Strands global as well. And it goes for the kids, for staff, guidance counselors, like they said, and for the parents as well.
Yeah, and so members of the community also, we have all of our flyers back there. It has our contact information. Even if it's you and just one of your friends, you're like, hey, I want to know more about trafficking, how to protect my kids, make sure to just grab one of those. And we are so lucky to be a part of the Terrebonne DA's office. Y'all don't even know how much support they give us and sending us to so many trainings, because their goal is to help stop that re-victimization of the kids, just because these cases are so complex.
Right, and it affects them for so long.
So.
Thank you. Are there any laws in Louisiana that can force a juvenile to stay in a youth shelter, or can they leave at any time like in other cities like Las Vegas and Pensacola?
Unfortunately, after the age of 14, federally, you're not allowed to keep them. The only way you can keep them is in the criminal, the Office of Juvenile Justice.
If it's a court order.
Yeah, it's a court order, but it's really sad. I mean, which one of you have raised a 14-year-old and said, well, now that you're 14, you can do whatever you want. Mom and Dad can't stop you. But that's the insanity of it.
How difficult would it be to write a bill for, basically, you have to be 18 years or older to own a phone?
Good luck.
The bill is easy, the enforcement's impossible.
Well, it's worse than that. Writing a bill is easy. We could write one tonight. Passing a bill is the difficult thing. And then if it passes, enforcing the law is going to be a problem. So really, when we're talking about minors, the authority needs to remain with parents as to what the minors can own or utilize. People, if you have a child, be a parent, monitor your household, keep an eye on what comes and goes, keep an eye on what they have. They could have a phone that you didn't even buy for them, which could be a big, serious problem.
Australia just outlawed social media for anyone under the age of 16.
I do want to say too, one of the things that we inherited in the governor's office that we are diligently trying to correct is in the Office of Juvenile Justice. Do you know how many beds there are for females who have been adjudicated, who have gone through the criminal justice system? 27 for the whole state. 27 beds. So if you have been convicted of a crime as a juvenile female in the state of Louisiana, there are 27 beds to put you in state custody. That's it, just 27. Now we do have pre-adjudicated facilities that do house some children who have been adjudicated already. But that's part of our problem, is that we have these kids, and then, these 27 that are in that facility, they do get very good wraparound, what we call wraparound services, right? Somebody mentioned about the trauma, because they have so much trauma. And so there is a lot of services for them, but in some of the pre-adjudicated facilities, the services aren't there, but then they don't hold them for very long, and then they let them go back out because there's just no beds for it. And that is something that the legislature and the governor is actively trying to address.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ebony Bailey. I'm actually part of the With the People Human Trafficking Committee. I used to work in a juvenile treatment facility for juveniles who were sex offenders and who also were many times victims themselves. And I also used to do community case management. And I just wanted to add a comment to everything that everyone has said. Definitely keep these in mind, but I will simply say, as a former case manager and person who works with these children, you're not going to be able to police it all. The one thing I absolutely want to tell you is developing a relationship with your child that they can feel confident to come to you and talk to you is really the only way. I have an 18-year-old, I work full-time, I'm here doing these things, and I know many of you are. There's no way, shape, or form you're gonna learn. My daughter has Roblox now, she has TikTok, I have no idea. I'm at the age now where she has to help me get in my phone. So respectfully, trying to manage and understand all of that, absolutely, get yourself educated on what you need to get educated on. But it's a process, going through this, learning this, understanding it, it takes time. Even working in the treatment facility, it took me a lot of time to understand what we were dealing with, what the depth of it is, but the most important thing, like Father Bahi and them said, was developing a relationship with your child that they feel comfortable with you. Because if someone is messaging them on the phone, or if somebody is talking to them at school, or somebody in your household, because that's what, as Father Bahi also said, half of this problem starts in the house. And I know we don't want to talk about that, it's extremely uncomfortable. But if we can just solve the household problem, we've solved half the problem there. And we keep on making laws trying to fix the problems, and we look to our DAs and we look to legislative leaders, okay, let's do this. And these are well-meaning questions. How do we, enforce a phone policy? How do we take away TikTok? And it's like, well, we can do those things, but we also must hold ourselves accountable as parents. And we must hold ourselves accountable in the community. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
And it's important that a child has two parents. Yes. That's very important. That most of our children are in situations that is a single parent household and there's never been a father figure, and they are at higher risk for so many things that are not good.
Okay, the next question is, does Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office have a website to where we can find resources to learn more about all the services or all the programs y'all have?
I'll stay home with that one. All right, we do have a free app, and there's a lot of resources and numbers that's on our app. It's an app. It's absolutely free. Wasn't free for me. Actually, it was. I do have my own IT guy, and when we wanted to put it out for information, because it's going to be a lot more just information when people want to know, but it's also for storms, a lot of things, or events. I got my own people, we designed it. They want to charge like $40,000. I ordered it for $700 because they were able to make it free on the App Store. And we had it designed, it just had to get approved by Apple on Android. So we do have a tpsco.net, you go on the app. And we do have phone numbers, we have tips. We have a tip hotline. If there's any information, you suspect something, you can send it directly to us. Our guys from narcotics, if you suspect maybe some prostitution going on, anything, it's totally anonymous. Our people, we have people watch that and follow up on those type of things. And it's free.
How much does it cost? Free.
Well, look, I learned, they said, well, they put an app, they do this, they do that. So, it's great because everybody got a cell phone. And when we started looking at it, some companies said, look, we can manage this. It's only going to cost you $10,000 a year, and we'll design it for $45,000. I looked at him, and I looked at my guy that does all, he said, I can design one. And I said, what do we got to do to get on that? He said, I looked into it, he said, $700. I said, get it done. A lot of times, but using it is free, and we're creating, it's growing, because once you get the apps, so during hurricane season, storm season, there'll be alerts or anything else. Plus all my press releases, when we make arrests, it's all there as well. So you can see the arrests we made, what we're doing. But it's a tool for our community, for communication with us. And sometimes there's even a line, hey, we want to thank the cop for doing this, for changing a tire or whatever. I mean, all our guys, they don't always get to hear the good stuff. And when they do good stuff, we make sure they get it. But anyway, we do have tpso.net.
Okay, what signs to look for concerning trafficking and safety? I guess what signs with the girls or kids or victims, and then maybe signs also if they're traffickers.
So I think you need to be careful. So we've kind of moved away a little bit from indicators and from red flags a little bit, because times change very quickly, right? And so it's hard to understand that. So one of the things, like we used to say when I first started doing trafficking work, I've been involved in sexual abuse work for long, I'm not gonna tell you all how long, because then you don't know how old I am. You know, when I first started doing this for Governor Jeff Landry 8 years ago or 9 years ago in the AG's office, you know, we used to say tattoos. You see juveniles with tattoos and branding, that's a big thing, right? So that you should question that. Well, now 15, 14, 16-year-old kids get tattoos all the time. Their parents let them go and get tattoos. And so it's not the taboo thing anymore, right? So you do have, it's harder to kind of point out some of the indicators. I think that some of the better indicators are, you know, things like people not having control over where they go, what they do. You see them always in the presence of someone else always speaking for them. I'm going to stop and let Father Bahi say some of the things that the girls who live out of Metanoia have said, or some of the things that they do, and then Taylor and Madison can probably expand on that a little bit too.
Well, I mean, it's true that tattoos have become common, but in the old days when we went to places like Backpage, you know, ranchers brand their cattle, traffickers brand their girls. When you start to see multiple tattoos, same girl's got the same tattoo.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
The other thing is that, you know, and this all goes to parenting. If I don't know your friends, you're not going. And if you keep the people you hang out with away from me, you're not allowed to go. Now you're coming home with a $200 purse. Where'd you get that from? You know, then when you start to realize there's, unbeknownst to you, truancy, unplanned absences at school. Yeah, they leave on the bus and go wherever they're supposed to go, but you found out that they missed 9 days, you know, last semester, and you knew nothing about it. You know, those are all indicators that there's another life going on other than the one that child is presenting to you. And more often than not, when that child is presenting another life to you, it's not a good one, and can oftentimes be one that they're being trafficked, or, you know, and like I said, you know, they get involved in these trauma bonds. They think that they're doing this out of love. And this 37-year-old guy has got a great car who picks her up at the next bus stop. You know, he loves me. You know, and then when you start, they put the pieces together. It goes back to what you were saying about being parents and not being afraid to be parents. And so what if they hate you? They'll get over it.
Taylor, did y'all want to add anything?
Yeah, so pretty much what they said, and I mean, it's obviously different if it's your child, like you know what their normal behavior is, so be on the lookout, and like I said, in constant communication with your kids, like you can tell whenever something's off. Don't let them give you the, oh, it's okay, oh, it's nothing answer. You know, don't be afraid to be the parent and be like, no, let's talk about this, you know, just me and you, let's sit down, have that nice conversation. And I'd say in the schools, you know, you're with these kids almost every single day. So just spot out behaviors and really trust your gut. Don't be afraid to ask the tough questions just out of fear or, oh no, I don't want to upset them.
You'll see in the video, one of our little girls who was trafficked and abused started at the age of 4. An art teacher one day said, "Are you okay? You don't look okay." And that just opened the floodgates, you know? And if you are in a supervisory role of children and you see a change, it's okay without accusing to ask questions about why you're so sad or what's so different.
There are a couple questions that are kind of going in the same direction. So one is, what are the biggest legal hurdles that DAs face? And then kind of also this question about why are so few traffickers prosecuted? So I don't know, Joe, if you want to speak to any of this?
sometimes making these cases is very difficult. We have an issue with cooperation. Some of these people do not want to cooperate, they're from out of state. But we have a very rigid policy. We try to prosecute them here to the fullest that we possibly can. I don't want to talk about a lot of cases, but you may remember a few cases a few years ago. We had that of a teacher that took somebody to Florida. There was sex and drugs and all kind of stuff involved. And we prosecuted that to the fullest. And we actually got, he went to jail. And during this time, I had a lot of, he's not a bad guy, he's all that, and I felt we had to send a message to the community that we're not going to stand for this, and send a strong message to everybody that we can't tolerate it, and we're going to shut it down, and that's what we did. So some cases, they're very fact specific. We have to base our prosecution based upon the individual facts. Sometimes it's difficult because nobody wants to cooperate. Sometimes the kids and the girls don't want to cooperate. So it's very, and what I have to prove in a courtroom is something occurred beyond a reasonable doubt. And we have to prove our factual allegations that we have. And without cooperation, it makes it difficult. So I understand what some of the problems some DAs go through, but I also understand that some DAs don't believe that's a real issue.
I think one of the things we have to talk about too, just a little bit more, that, we're talking about how do you keep your kids safe and those types of things. But what you have to realize is that a large percentage of juveniles who are sex trafficked are trafficked by a family member. And sometimes that's their mother or their father. And in cases where we see it's a mother who is trafficking their child, it's usually generational, right? So the mother was trafficked, they didn't call it trafficking when she did it, but we see that. Those are the cases that we see. And how do you get a child to go to court and tell on their mother? And tell on their grandmother or their grandfather who is trafficking them, or their father who's selling them for drugs? How do you put a child on a stand and do that? And sometimes it's detrimental to the mental health and the physical health of the child to prosecute those cases.
The other thing is that what I would hope legislatively, we prosecute murder cases all the time without a witness. To have a 13 or a 14-year-old, go in and look at a 37-year-old man and say that man did X, Y, and Z. So usually if a forensic interview at the time of the apprehension could stand in court, in place, and maybe legislatively, I know Texas has now gotten laws that they can prosecute juvenile traffickers without a victim testimony. I mean, we do it all the time in murder cases. And if legislative, we could get that passed, and I don't know where that, where that stands.
Well, the problem we have in Louisiana, they have the right to confront their accusers. That's the problem. And sometimes they don't want to. And if we could do what they do in Texas, in Louisiana, that may be a different. But right now, they have the right to confront their accusers, and just using a tape or something, we're not allowed to do that.
Well, I mean, but can that be amended? Can that law be amended when you're dealing with juveniles and this type of crime?
It's a legislative function.
Oh,
I would certainly be supportive of it, but we have to get around the constitutional barriers of the right to confront.
I mean,
Let's do it.
Also,
Protect kids. At the end of the day, just protect kids, man. Like here's the thing. You got people that run around. If you got somebody that wants to be a damn pedophile, and they know that they're gonna go to jail for 6 months, and then they're gonna get out and they're gonna be allowed to do it again, and they fucking get caught. Like, what are you doing to protect kids? If we can't protect our kids, who can we protect? Like, think about it, man. So, like, what's the biggest thing they can get hit with as a penalty? That would be my question. Like, if they're looking at, they make what did he say? What numbers did he say earlier? He said $1 million a year they can make doing this? You think they care if they go to jail for a year?
$1 million.
Like, what did he say? Annually, how much did they make?
Yeah,
He said a lot of money. That's what I know, right? So, What are they gonna care if they go to jail for a year, 2 years, 6 months? I mean, come on.
It's usually a lot longer than that. I mean, it depends, there's different laws. There's carnal knowledge of a juvenile, there's sexual abuse of a juvenile, there's human trafficking.
When you say, you know what, you don't get to do this to kids at all.
Right.
And make that statement very clear. Like, when does that become a thing? Because, like, I've seen it happen too many times with my family. That's part of the reason I'm here. And I'm pissed off about it. Like, you're gonna start having good men. This is the thing that everybody needs to think about, because this will happen. You're gonna start having good men do things about it, and they're gonna be tried in court. Look, the thing that happened, who wasn't in Baton Rouge at the airport a long time ago?
Yeah,
You're gonna have situations like that, because I can tell you what, I got a 17-year-old daughter, and I will tell you right now, let somebody touch my daughter. The man's not gonna live.
So the only thing that, I understand.
Am I wrong for doing that?
No, well, I understand, yeah.
Like, somebody needs to be held accountable.
I understand what you're saying, and our criminal justice system in the United States, not just in Louisiana, in the United States, definitely has flaws in it, but it is the best criminal justice system in the world. It absolutely is. And it does have flaws, but I do believe that it is one of the best in the world. I will say this, in that case, the child who was kidnapped and abused, his name is Jody Cloche. He wrote a book called Why, Gary, Why? And actually, it was very detrimental to Jody's recovery and mental health that his dad killed his abuser, that his dad killed his perpetrator. So it was actually very damaging to Jody's mental health. During the Gary Nesser trial, we saw the gentleman who had 2 daughters. He kind of got famous because he had a IBEW, a union electrician shirt on, but he actually jumped over the barrier and tried to beat up Gary Nesser. His daughters have been very public about how detrimental that was to their mental health and to their recovery. So I do understand your frustration, I understand what you're saying. We are changing the penalty, we're trying to change the penalty phase for human trafficking cases.
What is the greatest penalty?
Well, the greatest penalty is you can go to jail for the rest of your life. It depends on what charges it is, what the crime is. There's different kinds of degree of crime.
What cost to the state?
Excuse me?
What's the cost to the state?
To put somebody away for the rest of their life, the actual dollar cost to the state?
Yes.
I wouldn't, I'd have to ask DOC what that is.
All right, we'll wrap this up. Maybe y'all can talk after. I know some of our speakers have to leave because they've traveled.
Like, when we start talking about that, I'll ask everybody this question. Do you want to pay to keep a pedophile in jail? Who in here wants to say yes to that? See, I don't hear anybody saying, I do.
I don't think
hear
anybody
that.
does. Yeah.
Okay, so what am I saying?
Wait.
I'll just leave it at that.
Well, no, but I mean, I did a residency in California prison system, and 80% of the pedophiles had had sex forced on them by a legal adult before the age of 12. I don't know where I would be today if that happened to me. That's all I'm going to say.
I get that.
And so, you know, I don't in any way excuse what they did or think it's acceptable. But we're talking about generational trafficking. Unfortunately, we have generational sexual dysfunction as well.
And the other thing is, all those coming across the border, we only talked about us here.
Yes, amen.
That's a whole nother evening.
That's a whole lot more money, a whole lot more kids, and a whole lot more detriment.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for our speakers for taking the time, for driving, for sitting here. To address human trafficking, would you please sign up with Vicki for the committee? And also don't forget the tables at the back. Glenn, did you have something else? Am I forgetting? Okay. Yeah, don't forget. Yeah, great. All right, thank you all.
David from Iowa.